Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast, where I teach educated, successful couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships so that you can stop compromising and start feeling fully alive in your relationship. I'm Alexandra Stockwell, aka the Intimacy Doctor. I'm a physician, a relationship and intimacy coach, and I'm an intimate marriage expert. My husband and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing marriage. I've shown hundreds of couples how to do so as well. So if you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now, let's dive in. Small is beautiful. It just really amuses me to say that because I am a short person. I am 5'2.5". I like to round up to 5'3", but the fact is I'm 5'2.5". I know on this podcast, some of you may think that I'm making a very explicit reference to what is known as micropenis, and actually, I'm not talking about my height or the size of any part of anyone's anatomy. But small is beautiful, and I'm about to get into that in more detail in a little while. But before I do, I want to tell you about my upcoming masterclass. It's happening March 22nd. It's free, and it's called 5 Essential Lessons from 28 Years of Marriage to help you go from companions to lovers. While it's not true as I record this, by the time you hear this podcast episode, I will have celebrated 28 years of marriage with my beloved Rod Stockwell. We met the first week of medical school. That was in 1993. We actually met the day that my great-grandmother died. She was 104 years old, somebody so close to me, and I can only begin to imagine how happy she would be to know that I met a nice Jewish doctor. However, I, of course, didn't know that he would become my husband the first day. I actually had a feeling about it pretty early on. But anyway, we have been through all kinds of adventures in our lives, living in different locations. We've had such a range of circumstances when it comes to our finances, when it comes to our fertility, career choices, all kinds of things that I think when we got married, we thought these elements in our marriage would be fairly predictable and traditional, and they weren't. In fact, when we got married, I was clear there was a very good chance we would get divorced. I know the statistics at that time. 50% of first marriages end in divorce. His parents were divorced when he was a child. Mine were divorced when I was a child. Like, what we had going for us was our love and our willingness to grow individually and together. Not just our willingness, our devoted commitment to it. And what we had going against us was our profession, higher statistical likelihood of divorce among doctors, our childhood modeling and experiences. We had a lot working against us. And here we are, having celebrated 28 years of marriage, and I'm really excited to share the 5 essential lessons. Not so much about what kept us together, but specifically what contributed to our transitioning from being companions, having sex from time to time, but it just was more functional, to becoming passionate, adoring, supportive, independent, interdependent, dynamic lovers who really are more in love now than when we got married. Well, it's of course hard to compare because that was so long ago, and memory, especially of emotional matters, is not so precise. But I can say that I wholeheartedly embrace who I am and who he is, and I know that we will be together until death do us part. So if you'd like to learn the 5 essential lessons that I have gleaned through my life experience, now my life experience has definitely included learning from my trainings, learning from my clients, having a kind of playful researcher's attitude, experimenting in my marriage. And the reality is that the most significant lessons are ones I have learned experientially or learned and implemented experientially. And so this free masterclass happening March 22nd, and you're invited. And not only are you invited, you're invited to invite your friends. So the link to sign up for this free masterclass is alexandrastockwell.com/masterclass. That link will be in the show notes. And when you get there, you'll get all the information. You'll just need to put in your name and email, phone number, and so forth. It's free, and there will be a recording. And so you'll have a week to watch the replay, which will automatically be sent to you. So if you're a new listener to the podcast, I welcome you. And whatever had you curious to listen, I think you'll really enjoy the masterclass. And if you are a loyal listener or a recurring listener, well, I'm so glad you're here. I love being in dialogue with you. I know that I do all the talking when the podcasts drop, but so many of you respond by leaving a rating and a review on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen, or send me through the contact page on my website, send me feedback. And so I do feel like I'm in dialogue with you. And if you have something to say and I haven't heard it yet, by all means, leave a rating and a review, and or go to the contact page on my website and let me know how listening to the podcast has impacted you. Either way, whatever brought you to this episode, I think you're going to get a lot of benefit from this masterclass, which I say is free. So sign up and tell your friends. This is information that is of great value for anyone who wants to grow and deepen their connection, expand the intimacy. It's especially relevant for high-performing, driven, ambitious professionals, because my husband and I, both physicians, that describes us. But these lessons are also universal and will apply to anyone in a loving, committed relationship, or wanting your relationship to feel more loving and be more committed. So with that invitation to join me for the masterclass March 22nd, I want to talk about how beautiful small things are. And the small things I'm talking about are the little things we do day to day. Romantic gestures are wonderful for social media. You can have, starting in high school, I have an 18-year-old, so I'm clued into the grandeur of a dramatic promposal, an invitation to the prom, or even an engagement. There's so many grand gestures, whipping someone off their feet and heading, maybe to join us in Maui for Honeymoon 2.0. Grand gestures have a place. Some people like them more. Some people like them less. Some people like creating them for their spouse more. Some people don't enjoy it so much. But I want to turn your attention to the largely invisible, hidden, small thing. Like, for example, my husband often comes home from work when it's dark, certainly for a good portion of the year. And I know that it means so much to him to have the light on. Now, when I'm in the house just doing what I'm doing, I'm working, I'm cooking dinner, whatever I'm doing, I'm not really thinking about the light outside. We do have one wall that is like part dining room, part living room, which is all windows. But if I'm not in the space there, I'm often not paying so much attention to natural light. And so I definitely look forward to my husband coming home. But somewhere along the way, this is years ago, I learned, because he told me, how much it means to him to have the light on, that the difference between walking in where it's dark and walking in where it's light is the difference between him feeling welcome and him honestly not feeling welcome. So it's a really little thing, but I might go 2 years before I forget to turn the light on. And when that happens, I actually just apologize, because I realize, I didn't do that. It's such a small thing to flip that switch. And all it really takes is a little attention. if I didn't have the attention, if that weren't part of my routine, I'd probably just program it into my calendar every day at 5 p.m. to just turn the outside light on. Similarly, one of the things that used to be really challenging for me, especially when the children were young and I wasn't working the end of the day, and especially when I was full-time at home, which I was at different phases since our first child was born, there's a way in which I would pace myself until my husband would come home. The thing is that he has a great work ethic. He's very thorough, and he delivers care to patients in a very conscientious way. When he would actually get home, there'd be a range of like 2 hours. Occasionally, it would be at the beginning of that range. More often, it'd be somewhere in the middle, and sometimes it would be at the end of that range. And there's a way in which I wanted to have dinner ready when he got home because it was better for our children to eat as early as possible, and it was important to me to eat together as a family. And so it was very hard to have dinner ready at just the right time without it getting cold, without it being, well, too hot wasn't really an issue, I guess, when I make soup. But I wanted to know when he was going to be home so that I could coordinate everything and not have to then scramble because suddenly he's at home. And so once he understood that, he started to text me when he leaves work. He's always had a commute of some distance. Right now, it's about 45 minutes. And so when he texts me, I know he'll be home 45 minutes later. And it's a small thing. It's not even romantic, but I feel so cared for. So not only do I get the logistical benefit, I get the love in his choosing to do this very small gesture for me, but he does it consistently. And similarly for me, it's just really not a big deal to turn the outside light on. I mean, sometimes I have to remember, but other than that, it's just not a big deal. It takes almost no time. But that light is not just lighting the entryway to our home. It is an expression of him being cared for, welcome, and considered by me. Or, quite honestly, I sometimes ask one of the children to turn it on, but it's my impulse. Similarly, I've talked multiple times on the podcast on the way to 200 episodes here about the importance of transitions, of just taking a moment to connect with your spouse when you leave for work, when you return home, after the children are put to bed, before you go on to the next evening activities, before you go to sleep. No, I'm not suggesting that all of these are appropriate for all couples, but some number of transitions can be done with more attention and intention. And again, it's not even a romantic gesture. It is attention on the connection between the two of you. There's so much that shuts down the expression of our love for one another. We can feel it, but with attention on work and cleaning up the home and making sure the kids are taken care of and whatever volunteer projects and working out, there just are so many things that get our attention. And anything that you do that puts attention on the relationship or on your spouse is a way in which the love you feel gets expressed and gets to be received. Now, there are a few things about small things. First of all, I want to say they certainly can be romantic. Like you could leave a love note where your partner will find it, or send a sexy text during the day out of the blue, or when your spouse comes home, say you have booked a nice restaurant together, or that you've booked it for the weekend after you both get a good night's sleep. This is obviously not an exhaustive list, but I want to convey romantic gestures are fantastic, and so are not very romantic gestures like getting your spouse's car detailed, just taking it for a few hours when they wouldn't be using it and wouldn't miss it, or they're out of town and when they come back, the car is detailed. These are small things that express love through putting your attention on the other person's experience. And sometimes the spontaneity is wonderful, but it doesn't mean that as you do the thing, it needs to be spontaneous. As I said, if I weren't remembering it, I could put in my calendar to turn the outside light on. Or you could put in your calendar when you know your spouse is going to be away on a trip to do the detailing. So the experience of their car. So the experience that they have when they come home is that something spontaneous happened, but you don't actually need to be spontaneous. You can just schedule a time once a month to brainstorm what you want to do for the next month and then just put it in your calendar so that it happens. Because the point here is that these really easy things have such a huge impact on the quality of connection between the two of you. And they open up the flow of love, whether it's in a romantic context or just a more practical context. And opening up the flow of love is really the lubricant for deepening emotional intimacy, sensual intimacy, sexual and erotic intimacy. When you feel loved, when you feel seen, when your needs are considered and attended to, of course you're going to be open to slow down and spread your legs. So with these small things, the first principle I want to convey is that they can be really easy for you. You can start as small as you like. There's nothing about this that needs to be overwhelming. It's just a matter of pivoting and putting your attention on something small, which requires you to perceive what your spouse would enjoy and making a plan to win at doing it. That's point number one. Point number two, which I haven't talked about yet, but is extraordinarily important, is that this is not transactional. This is not, for example, my husband texts me when he's going to arrive home and therefore I turn the outside light on. No, not at all. Not at all. It does so happen that those two have a kind of logical connection, but most of the time, honestly, I turn the light on when I think of it because I don't want to miss it before he texts me that he's coming home. Occasionally when he texts me when he'll be home, it functions as a reminder to turn the light on, but he's not doing that without expectation. He's texting me his estimated time of arrival because he knows it's a small thing for him to do and it makes a really big difference for me. Similarly, with turning the light on. Similarly, if I text him something sexy during the day, which actually I haven't done in a while, and I'm just recording this episode is reminding me. I'm always a little hesitant, like if I send a provocative photo, where is he going to be when he opens it up? But I can always send a text saying, check your email and do it in private. So there are ways to work with that. And when you have your attention on the little things that you can do that enhance your partner's experience, you actually, over time, with consistency, can create really big seismic results. So this is a small investment of time and attention, and with consistency, you can get a very big ROI on your efforts. So what I want to know is, what would be nice for your partner? What would make a difference? Something that maybe you don't ever do, maybe you very occasionally do. What could you do that would be the difference in your partner easily feeling your attention, care, and love without it being a whole big deal, without it taking a lot of time or effort from you? Maybe it means something to her if you open the car door, which requires thinking of it, but not a whole lot of time. Maybe that's just no big deal to her, and what she really wants is for you to bring her flowers. Okay, well, put it in your calendar and do it that way. You can even place the order with the florist as you listen here and just put in your calendar to pick it up. It doesn't mean it has to be today. I'm really inviting you, as I say the same thing in many different ways, I'm doing that intentionally to invite you to consider what's something that just would mean a lot to your spouse that is just not a big deal for you. I suppose I could summarize my point here by saying, when it comes to cultivating relationships, no pain, no gain does not apply, at least in this context. You can have no pain, minimal effort, big gain, because the consistent, loving, attentive things really make all the difference. And you know what I want to leave you with for inspiration? It could be that the thing you do is make a practice of when you see your spouse smiling. Now, that might feel like it takes effort, but that is something that is a habit you can cultivate so that your spouse has the experience that when you see them, you smile. Small thing, super big gains. So really, what are you going to do? And please implement it. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh, but I don't know how I'm going to do that, or, oh, I don't know when I'm going to do that, then pick something easier. Small and easy totally wins on this. It's the thing that creates the win-win and makes it sustainable for you and no less pleasurable for your spouse. So let me remind you again to join me for the free masterclass, 5 essential lessons learned through 28 years of marriage on how to go from being companions to lovers. Invite your friends. Sign up now. Link is in the show notes, alexandrastockwell.com/masterclass. It's free, so why not partake and have fun doing really simple, easy things and enjoy the result.